Okay, next piece that I wanted to talk about. In one of the games, or actually I think it was the first game for the U14, we had a coach on this side of the field, and we had 1, 2, 3, 4 coaches on this side looking in. Okay. Firstly, I understand why you guys had another coach on that side, so you could maybe communicate things to the kids on the far side without having to shout across. Firstly, the if you get into the coaching certifications at the level 300 and 400, there's a big emphasis on not giving instructions during games to the kids. That's the first thing. That I don't know if any of you done the 300 yet or not, but there's a big emphasis on that. Not instructing them in the middle of a game, because firstly it just confuses them, and secondly it's not very productive. But what we try to do is give them game scenarios during training where they can go make mistakes and then teach in the moment. So if they see that mistake happens, stop, everyone pause, stay where you are. This is the problem. You got on the wrong side of the ruck, you made a mistake, you were offside. Okay, so you're supposed to be here. This is how you're supposed to do it. Okay, continue playing. Boom. And it's done. They've learned in that moment, and then they won't make the mistake in the game, hopefully. However, what I saw was at one point, I think we got a penalty, if I remember. Somewhere in this area, we were attacking that way. And I saw this coach give an instruction, this coach give a different instruction, and this kid basically just like, what do I do? I've got people shouting at me all over the place. And the kid didn't know what to do because he'd received 2 instructions. There's a pretty good chance that if we had given various scenarios over a period of time in training, that kid would have probably made their own decision somewhat correct, because they'd seen it in the training session already. But definitely giving them 2 different instructions at the same time from the sideline in an intense environment where the kid's under pressure is not helpful to the kids. It's not good for the team, and they're not really learning anything, and they're getting a bad experience. Okay, so one thing I would suggest is firstly, you can have this coach over this side, that's fine, but have one coach, if anything, one coach giving instructions. Ideally, 0 coaches would be giving instructions. Ideally, we don't really want to be doing that. So that's the first thing. Let me just redo this. Okay, so we've got 5 coaches. Again, a little excessive, but I want to make a point about this. So you've got kids playing. Everyone's playing. There's plenty of kids on the field. You've got 12 guys on your team in the under 14s, and that's all good. Everyone's playing. What I noticed as well is in this area, you had all of the substitutes, the B team, right? We were talking about earlier. So you probably your A team is on here, and your B team is here. What I saw here, in the entire first half, at least, of that game, these guys were not engaged. They didn't know what was happening. They were goofing around with their friends. I saw several of them just hanging from the bars and playing around, throwing water at each other and having a good time. Okay? Why do we need 5 coaches shouting instructions to these kids? What we can do is take 2 coaches. I think actually Wayman was the assistant referee on that game. So fair enough, whatever. But we've still got 2 coaches available here. Why not put these 2 coaches here? Firstly, to control what the kids are doing, but secondly, and more importantly, keeping them focused, engaging them in what's happening in the game. Okay. If you're the backup scrum half in Team B, a coach can be speaking to that scrum half and saying, look what scrum half from Team A is doing. Notice how he went down the blind side instead of passing it directly out because he took a look first. Where are you standing? Are you offside? These guys are offside. They got in trouble. We had a penalty against us. Remember, you have to be standing behind the back foot of the ruck. When you tackle, you have to roll away. You can be engaging with them in real time. So a bit like a training ground scenario when you're giving them live game scenarios and they're making mistakes and you can correct them in the moment. We can be doing that here with these substitutes. But what we saw were 5 coaches engaged in the game and these kids goofing around not learning anything. These guys need that engagement so that they can get as good as these guys. That's where the development happens. We don't need to be giving instructions to these guys. If anything, we need to be giving instructions to these guys because they're not playing right now. But if they're learning, that's a good use of time. And when they do go on, they're focused because they've been engaged prior. They're getting mentally prepared to play. When they go on, it's a good substitution. The kid comes out and a replacement comes focused, fresh legs and focused. Maybe is not as good of a player, but at least they're mentally ready to go on the field and they're focused to get the job done. And they've learned something along the way because they're watching the guys in the A team do things hopefully correctly. And we can reinforce that in these conversations. So instead of having 5 coaches here shooting lots of information and shouting and cheering, then maybe we just have one coach giving some kind of information, maybe a couple of coaches giving their opinion to the main coach or the head coach, and then we've still got 2 coaches that could be here reinforcing what's happening on the field to those kids that are no longer swinging on the rafters. They're focused and watching the game. Okay? It's a big one for me. I think that's a big part of what we can improve hugely in each age group. Definitely in the under 14s, just because it seems like we've always got at least 3 or as many as 5 coaches there.